What's going on, YouTube? Of course, this is Christine Ill from the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area. And I am finally putting together some videos with the objections and the rebuttals. All right. So it has been a challenge because I have done this recording and I had all of the objections and the rebuttals together, but the file was too big. So I was not able to upload that to YouTube. So we are starting over and we are going to break this objection series up. It's going to become a series. All right. So this first video, we are going to talk about the science of the objection and then of course how to overcome that. In my next video, and it may be 2 additional videos, I'm going to go into the objection and then the rebuttal. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. So I actually did this training a couple years ago, and I'm basically going over a PDF of some research that I had done again a couple years ago when I put this piece together. So this makes it a little bit easier for me and also for you guys to follow along. So again, let's just jump right in. Okay. So do you feel that you would be more successful if you knew how to overcome objections? And obviously the answer is yes. All of us in the sales arena have to be able to overcome the objections in order to get the check, bottom line. So as a general rule, people are hesitant to commit to purchasing a product or service until they have convinced themselves that they need it and are assured they are getting it at a fair price. Research indicates a prospect will say no on an average of 5 times before they will actually buy. Think about that, guys. A prospect will say no on an average of 5 times. So if you're hearing the no once or twice and giving up, come on, you're not really doing your job. 5 times, all right? As a professional salesperson, that's us, right? It is important to remember that an objection is not a rejection of you personally. So guys, it's not about you. Put your feelings to the side. This is strictly business. Typically, a prospect's objection will fall into 4 different categories. No money. We know we hear that. They don't perceive the need of the product at all. They're not in a hurry. Or they don't trust you. Those are your 4 things. No money. They feel like they don't need it. They're not in a hurry. And they don't trust you. 4 things. If you haven't built trust and rapport with your prospect by qualifying them financially and conducting a thorough needs analysis, you can expect them to use objections to derail the sales process. When addressing an objection, don't dump the whole bale of hay. So, in other words, the majority of salespeople have a tendency to overwhelm and bore their prospects by over-educating them. Many salespeople lengthen the appointment and use up their valuable fallback positions in an attempt to show how knowledgeable they are. Occasionally, your prospect's objection may be disrupted, and therefore, you might want to delay answering it until a more appropriate time. When you make the decision to delay the response, I recommend you to write down the question and ask them, would it be okay if I address your question at the end of this presentation? However, and some objections come up twice, you should stop and go ahead and address that objection. All right? So let's go ahead and jump into the steps of addressing an objection. Step number 1, you need to hear them out and write it down. When your prospect voices an objection, show your concern, treat it with respect, and hear them out. Interrupting when you should be listening not only presents a bad first impression, but it also destroys the trust and the rapport. Learn to be an active listener by giving your prospect your full and undivided attention. Avoid the temptation to think about your response while your prospect is speaking. An active listener is not only listening to what their prospect is saying, but is also trying to discover the meaning behind the words. Research indicates that 65% of our communication is nonverbal. Therefore, it is vitally important to pay attention to body language and listen to voice inflections. In addition to observing your prospect's gestures, you must learn to be mindful of your nonverbal communication as well. Before you begin responding to your prospect's objection, it is vitally important that you understand their specific concern. Even though you may have heard the same objection many times before, you must avoid the temptation to begin addressing their concerns prematurely. Otherwise, you run the risk of shooting yourself in the foot by voicing an objection they had not even thought about. I could recommend you get in the habit of restating the objection in your own words to gain agreement prior to responding. All right? So listen to their objection, write it down, recite it back to them so that you can make sure that what you heard is exactly what they're saying before you respond, because you don't want to open up another can of worms, in other words. All right? It is a good idea to take notes and occasionally nod your head affirmatively to let them know that you are keeping track with them. Once you have listed all of your prospects' objections, conclude this step by saying, Bob and Mary, if your concerns can be addressed to your complete satisfaction at this point, can you think of anything else that might keep you from going ahead with this decision today? If any additional objections are brought up, add them to the list and ask the question again to gain the commitment. Obviously, it does not make sense to go to the next step in your presentation if there's any reluctance to go forward. Step number 2. Feed it back for clarification. Feeding the objection back in the form of a question provides your prospect an opportunity to expand upon their concerns. For example, if your prospect said they don't have an answer to how much money they have in their budget, you would simply feed it back in a non-judgmental way by saying, "You don't have the money in your budget?" This technique greatly reduces the perception of pressure. By giving your prospect the opportunity to explain their statement, they will frequently answer their own objection. Another good reason to clarify the objection is to make certain you are addressing their exact concern and not inadvertently creating a new one. Some objections are greater importance to your prospect than others. A prospect will often use insignificant objections in an attempt to stall or delay the closing sequence. After you have clarified the objection, ask your prospect how important that concern is to them. After all, not every objection is really important. All right? 2 more steps, then we're going to close this video out and we're going to start on the actual questions, the different objections, and how to respond. All right? So we're on step number 3. Answer the objection and close the sale. When addressing an objection, try to stay with the big picture, but be prepared to provide details upon request. Use whatever is necessary, even personal testimonies or testimonies from other agents that you have heard, to keep the big picture approach. All right? During this important step, pay particular attention to your prospect's body language gestures. Once your prospect agrees that their objection has been resolved, let them watch you cross it off your list. Continue this deliberate process until each and every objection has been resolved. Then complete this step by asking, at this point, can you think of anything else that might keep you from making a decision today? If they say no, now you can proceed on with the rest of your presentation in confidence. Step number 4, Ask for the order and expect a decision. Transition into this step by saying, Bob and Mary, am I correct in saying that it appears you both have convinced yourself in the merits of this purchase? If you sense the least bit of hesitation, excuse yourself by saying, Bob and Mary, I can tell that you need a moment to discuss this information in private. Please let me take a few minutes, go to the car, make a few phone calls, and allow you the privacy to talk amongst yourselves. Keep in mind that you may have to ask for the check several times before you get the sale. So make sure to vary your closing questions. The key to overcoming objections and closing the sale is to remain professional and be persistent without becoming argumentative or defensive. Knowing how to effectively address your prospect's objections bring you closer to their final question, where do I sign? All right, guys. So we're going to shut this video down. We're coming up on 11 minutes, and I will start the next video on I want to think about it. I thought you were going to leave something in the mail or mail me something. I already have life insurance. I have too much life insurance now. I'm insurance poor. I'm really not interested. I don't like people just showing up at my house. I'm shopping around. You know what? I'm too busy. Can you check back with me in 3 months? Oh, my funeral's already paid for. I don't remember sending in that card. Well, honestly, can't I just save that money in my savings account? I need to talk this over with my children, and then I'll get back to you. I need to run this by my financial advisor. So, those are the few questions, objections, and I have some rebuttals for you guys. So I'll be right back. Make sure to hit like if this information was helpful to you, and definitely subscribe. Hit the little bell so that anytime that I post a video or I come on live, it notifies you so that you don't miss anything that you may need or that you want to hear. Thank you so much, and God bless.